Good morning. It's about a half an hour after sunrise, and we're up early, which can mean only two things. We're either going hunting or we're going fishing. Today, it's the latter. We're going to go spearfishing again on the Kona side of the island. So we'll be heading up over Saddle Road, and it's going to be a fun day. We're going to be fishing with my good buddy, Nye.
Morning.
Abby's ready for battle.
Battle leg on the beach.
Battle Beach.
This is my life now.
This is your life now, Abby. This is what happens when your husband gets a camera.
Get a vlogger husband.
Pretty much. Only when we go do fun things. So we made it, didn't we?
We did.
Made it. Wait, all that shit we have to bring out. Big bag full of dive gear. Yeti's gotta come. Camera bag. Buoy. Abigail. She has to come.
So close to my face.
And then spear gun. These guys over here have a really sick cart thing. We don't have that technology. Abby's got all the weapons of mass destruction. She's ready for battle. So shaky. Oh my god. Do I say hi?
Hey.
Yeah, so I guess working pretty well. We're gonna wait to get out there for a little bit. It was pretty windy up high. Doesn't look too bad right now. Maybe we'll go in a little bit before it gets too hot. But we'll see. Won't we?
Oh gosh, I guess so.
We will see. Yo, here we are, getting ready to go out. Maya's got his stuff going, ready for battle mode. Abby helped us bring the buoy out. Should be pretty fun. We will see you out there. When we first got in the water, Nye spots this nightmare veke, which is a type of goatfish. It's known for being hallucinogenic when eaten. I couldn't find a whole lot of specifics regarding the toxin that actually causes the hallucinations, but what I could find is that it does occur rarely, and when it does though, it's pretty intense. I found some pretty crazy accounts of other people eating hallucinogenic fish. One in particular in France, where a 40-year-old executive ate sea bream in Cannes, France. He had severe vomiting that night, which caused him to shorten his vacation and drive home. Soon he started hearing animals screaming and stopped when giant insects surrounded the car. After 36 hours in the hospital, the man was fine. Pretty insane stuff, all from eating a fish. It was pretty rare in Hawaii. From 1990 to 2014, there was only 17 cases reported to the Department of Health. The most recent one that we could find was in 2011. So it's been a while. There's probably been some more cases. It's likely that weren't reported. If you know of anybody that's had any crazy nightmares from eating the nightmare veke, you should definitely leave a comment below, because I'd be interested to learn more about what these types of fish do to people. One of the tactics we use to attract fish when we're on the bottom of the ocean is to stir up sand and to make grunting noises. You could hear me making grunting noises here. That's in an attempt to attract the fish over. They get curious to see what just came down to the bottom of the ocean, especially if you're throwing up sand, making racket with rocks, that sort of thing. A lot of times that'll attract fish to come in closer to you. The bigger fish and the types of fish that we like to hunt usually take a little bit longer to get curious enough to come check you out. But if you can be patient, if you can hold your breath long enough and be comfortable underwater, that's when you'll get your best chances. In this case, all I had was a few small fish swimming around me, which is always fun, but it wasn't quite the fish we were looking at trying to hunt. On this dive, Nye got into position and was very patient, and you see him just being as still as he can, and he's in pursuit of a goatfish. As he starts to run out of breath, he starts to pull forward on the rocks to try to pull himself forward and advance towards the fish, and then he ends up taking a shot at the end. The fish was right at the end of his effective range for his spear gun, so he didn't quite get the fish, but it was a good attempt nonetheless. When we spot rocks out in the middle of the sand, a lot of times that type of structure will hold fish. In this case, Nye spotted this batch of coral that was out by itself away from the rest of the rock structure. So he swam out to it, took a drop on it, hoping to find some fish. I hung back to try to make sure I didn't spook any fish, to make sure that he was okay, and spotted him. And unfortunately, there wasn't anything going on. You see him kind of hang out here for a little bit, have a few looks into some holes, but there wasn't anything going on. So we got donuts on the board for our fishing trip today so far. So Cephalopilus argus, or the peacock grouper, is known as the roy in Hawaii. So the roy is an invasive species. It was introduced in the 1950s as an alternative food source. And unfortunately, what ended up happening is these fish are carnivorous. Carnivorous? They're carnivores. And so they eat other fish. They're known to concentrate the Ciguatera toxin. Ciguatera is a heat-stable, lipid-soluble compound. So what happens is this toxin will concentrate in the muscle tissue of the fish, smaller fish, and the roy will then eat the smaller fish, and when they do so, that toxin is then concentrated into their muscle tissue. So you end up building up all of this toxin within the muscle tissue of the roy. And when humans go to eat the roy, they end up ingesting loads of this toxin, and that makes them very sick, makes us very sick. So unfortunately, introducing the roy to the local reefs of Hawaii backfired. It's now known as an invasive species. They make for pretty good target practice. In this instance, Nye spotted a roy hanging out around some reef, and I dove down to see if it would swim out towards me in case that he would flush it out. And as I got down, I saw a bunch of sand come up just about the time that Nye took a shot from the surface. So Nye, being in sniper mode, ended up sniping this fish. At the time, I wasn't sure if he actually got it or if he just got his shaft stuck in the coral. And the fish swam off, which is why all the sand was going everywhere. But as I hung out on the bottom, ended up coming back to the surface, I saw Nye dive down thinking he was going to retrieve his shaft, and he comes back with a fish. And you can hear I was super stoked, as stoked as I could be underwater.
Nice shot, dude. That was a great shot. I thought you just got it stuck into the reef.
It's really unfortunate these fish contain Ciguatera because there's loads of meat on them and they get really big. And they're also beautiful fish. Here you can see Nye putting the peacock grouper, the roy, on the stringer. We do bring him back to shore and then discard him there with the hope of getting one more invasive fish off the reef and maybe keeping some Ciguatera out of the food chain. So at this point we have one fish, but that fish is not edible, at least in terms of our standards. So I dive down at this point and I see a goatfish that I'm interested in trying to take. Get in a position, pulling myself forward on the coral, which is a tactic used by Spearos, and able to get in position, but unfortunately the fish ends up quartering away and I get a low percentage shot. I end up taking the shot, and typical Scott Ferguson fashion, I missed. So didn't get the fish, probably should have been a little bit more patient, maybe hung out on the bottom a little bit longer. I can't remember if I was running out of breath this early in the dive. Likely it was because I am pretty new to this still, but I was able to get close to the fish, and you know, hey, we'll leave another fish out there for someone else to get. Shortly after, I got into position on some Umu-Umu-Lei, and I'd seen these fish from the surface, and they were down in this ravine. So I dove down and used the terrain to sort of creep over and look down into this ravine. I was patient, I waited, made some calls, and sure enough, they started to come closer. Unfortunately, again, I didn't wait long enough, and I didn't quite let the fish get close enough to get an accurate shot. Pulled the trigger, missed the Umu-Umu-Lei. That's the way it goes. So on this drop, I ended up having my own encounter with a Roy. I've seen this Roy from the surface, dove down, and it also saw me. So it took a little bit of evasive action, got around some crazy sides of the coral, and as I dove down, he kind of ran around to the other side of the coral. I got into position hoping I could sort of creep over and get to him. Well, he was trying to see where I was at too. And he came up on top, and just as I was getting ready to pull the trigger, he darted away, missed again. So now I'm 0 for 3 on my shots for the day. So I was still in pursuit of this Roy, and I dove down hoping that he had darted into this cave. When I got into the cave, I saw a very colorful fish that I'm known to be a good eater. It's a long jaw squirrelfish, or alaihi. And these guys usually hang out under overhangs up to 50 feet of water, and so I'm only about 20 feet deep here, so usually you don't see them at this shallow of water. And I got into position, was hoping to get a good shot on him. He was kind of playing hide and seek back and forth out of this rock, and when he popped out, I tried to take a shot, took the shot, missed again, and he basically came back out and sort of laughed at me. You can kind of see him here, and I was frustrated, went back to the surface, had to rebreathe, came back down to retrieve my spear, and reloaded the gun. The fish had darted off at this point. Nye and I both took a dive down. He was on the other side of this cave. It was sort of a pretty unique rock structure there, and we were hoping that we could sort of flush him out, but he was long gone at this point. Nye noticed a taco hole, and he went down to see if there was an octopus home, and sure enough there was. To get these octopus out of their holes, you have to coax them out. What you have to do is take your spear and just kind of poke it in there, just kind of tickle the octopus a little bit. When you tickle the octopus, he gets upset, he gets angry, and what you see is some ink starting to come out of that area where Nye's working the hole. And so as that octopus gets angry, it starts trying to push whatever is bothering it away and starts wrapping around the spear, the tip of the spear that you're using. And at that point, that's when you can actually reach in and grab the octopus, you pull them out. And so what you see here is Nye's gone down, he's got the octopus out of the hole. As soon as he's able to grab him, he's got to shake the octopus to disorient it. So what you don't want to happen is for them to wrap around your arms, get up around your mask, and it ends up in a bad way. They'll rip your snorkels off, and you won't be able to breathe very well. Like pull your mask off, just not a good time. So it can be very dangerous here. So what you do is you grab the octopus, you shake them to disorient them, and what you see Nye doing here is the best way to quickly and painlessly dispatch these animals. And what he does is he bites the brain. So you'll see him put it in between his teeth. He takes a giant chop out of it. So he gets a nice mouthful of the brain, and it basically, from what I've heard, it's like basically a walnut or a grape-sized sort of knot in between the eyes of the octopus. And when he chomps down on that, it immediately kills the octopus, and that's why you see the thing turn completely white here. It goes from coral color to that brownish color to immediately white. So I'm lucky enough to get into close proximity of some smaller Umu-Umu-Lei here, and I managed to knock one out. Unfortunately, my battery on my GoPro died before I got the second one, but we ended up with 2 Umu-Umu-Lei and a taco to take home from this particular hunt. So that was the end of the day. I'm heading out spearfishing again tomorrow. Hopefully we'll get on some bigger fish. And as you can see, this is hunting. A lot of times you see videos that are basically a bunch of highlight reels, right? Where people are going out getting the biggest buck or the biggest animal they could find. Spearing these huge fish, giant fish everywhere. But in reality, that's not what most hunters are gonna see when they go out and try to get after a game. There's a lot of trial and error when it comes to hunting. There's a lot of times when you don't even see game. What I have enjoyed with spearfishing is the fact that you're gonna see fish. It's a target-rich environment. When I've elk hunted, there are times you're happy to just see an animal. So one of the things that you're starting to notice here is that spearfishing is really difficult. And for somebody like me who has hunted and fished throughout most of their life, coming to a place and getting into spearfishing where you're having to hold your breath underwater and hunt these animals, there's a very steep learning curve. Thankfully, we're able to get on some fish and get some meat each time. And we're pretty picky and choosy with what we take. I appreciate you tuning in to watch this video. Thanks for those that left a comment last time. As I continue to get more comments, I'll start to read them at the end of these videos so that we can have a chat about what folks have been saying. Thanks for the likes. Please smash that subscribe button and see what happens with tomorrow's dive. And we'll look forward to seeing you guys in the next video.